High performance leadership is usually talked about as a set of skills, and skills do matter. But today I want to talk about something underneath the skills, the thing that determines whether you can actually use them when it counts. Energy, specifically 3 kinds of it: bravery, grit, and confidence. Let me start with a moment I think you may recognize or resonate with at least. You see an opportunity, a stretch role opens up, a speaking slot at a conference, a chance to volunteer for the project everyone's going to be watching. Maybe it's smaller, one of those hundreds of ideas that scroll past on Instagram where you think, I could do that, and you let it pass. Then 3 weeks later or 3 months later, you watch someone else do the thing, someone who is no more capable than you are, and you're quietly furious with yourself. Sometimes you're furious with that person because you knew you could have done it and you didn't put your hand up. Here's what I want you to hear today. That moment was probably not a courage problem, and it definitely wasn't a capability problem. It was an energy problem. And once you understand the energy system underneath doing hard things, you'll understand why brave felt impossible that day, why it might feel possible right now, but exactly what to do about it for yourself and for your team. So let's dive in. There are 3 stages of energy, as I said. Bravery starts it, grit sustains it, confidence is earned. The model, when I say it like that, is simple. It's surprisingly deep, though, when we start using it. Every hard thing you've ever done has moved through those 3 stages. Bravery is what gets you started. It's the willingness to begin something that feels hard or uncertain before you know how it will go. Putting your hand up for the project, saying yes to the promotion, starting the business, the PhD, the house build. Bravery is the entry fee, and you pay it before you know what you've bought. Grit is what gets you through, because at some point after you start, reality arrives. It's harder than you thought. The early momentum is gone. The end isn't in sight. And you're in the long middle where the only options are to double down or to bug out. That doubling down, the problem solving, the adapting, the persisting, when it's no longer exciting, that is grit. And then confidence is what you earn on the other side, not self-belief conjured out of thin air. And this really, really matters, because we talk about confidence as if it were a leadership trait you either have or don't. It isn't a trait. It's earned certainty built on evidence. I have done this, so I know I can do it again. So many women come to me saying, I need to build my confidence. I need you to help me understand where to get the confidence from so I can do this thing. And I have to tell them, confidence isn't going to make you do the thing. Bravery is. Confidence comes after the fact. Here's the part that makes the whole model work. Once you have confidence to do something, the next time you face it, you need less bravery because you know what you're walking into. And less grit because you're not problem solving from scratch. You have a map. So the 3 stages aren't just a sequence, they're an exchange route. Every hard thing that you complete makes the next thing cheaper. Run your own career through this and you'll see it immediately. Think about the first time you presented to executives, the bravery it took to walk into that room, the grit it took to keep going when the questions got hard, when your slides got challenged, when someone senior looked bored. And then think about how you present to executives now. If you've done it 50 times, it costs you almost nothing. That's not because you became a different person. It's because you banked the confidence, and confidence changed the price. I remember the very first time I hit record for this podcast, I was terrified. By episode 10, I felt like I've got this down. At episode post 300, 312 as of this one, I feel like, you know what, this is just something I do every week. It doesn't cost me anything. Confidence changes the price. Now, here's the question that sets up everything else in today's episode. If confidence makes things cheaper, why do so many capable, experienced women find themselves unable to start the next hard thing? Why does the woman with 20 years of banked evidence freeze in front of an opportunity she is demonstrably qualified for? The answer is almost never the confidence account. It's the other 2 currencies and the fact that nobody ever told us that they run out. Okay, let's talk about a twist in the bravery story. I find this one endlessly fascinating, and it explains a lot about the decisions you've ever made, certainly how I've made decisions. The amount of bravery you need to start something depends on how much you know about how hard it will be. Which means naivety and bravery trade off against each other. The less you know, the less bravery you need. I'll give you two of mine. When I started my PhD, gosh, that's a long time ago now, I had absolutely no idea how hard those years were going to be. If someone had shown me an honest preview, I'm genuinely not sure I'd have signed up. More recently, my husband and I have taken on a house building project, just the two of us. We are doing it ourselves. We are that kind of crazy. We've only really just started, and it's a 5-year thing. And already everything has become more complicated than we thought it was going to be. If we'd known when we put the offer on our piece of land to build a house, the very beginning, several years ago now, what we were taking on, the fact it's taken us years to get to this point, we wouldn't have taken it on. And we don't regret it for a second, but naivety has helped us. That's naive bravery, and I see it everywhere in the careers of women I coach. The promotion accepted without fully understanding the role, the team inherited without knowing what was really inside it. And I'm guilty of supporting women in these moments. I don't know what's the other side of it either, even though I've seen this hundreds of times. We'll have a good conversation about what this role is likely to be. We weigh up the pros and cons as far as we know them in a coaching session. They get in, and the career change was made on a fraction of the information a sensible decision would require. Some of the best things in your life exist because you didn't know better. But here's the flip side, and this is where the model starts doing real work for you. The more naive bravery at the start, the more grit the middle will demand. The gap between what you expected and what has got to be paid for somewhere, it gets paid in grit. So the more naive you are, the more grit you will need. Which is why the moment reality hits, the what have I done moment, is not a sign you made the wrong call. It's the predictable second stage of every hard thing you're going to do that's worth doing. I've talked about it before on how to work inside your zone of genius. The work that lights you up rarely looks sensible from the outside. This is the same kind of territory. The question is never whether the middle will be hard, it's whether you'll have the grit available when it is hard. And that word available is where we go next. Here's the insight at the center of the entirety of today's episode, because this model of energy, this bravery, grit, and confidence is something I've only figured out as a coach. But if you take one thing away from today, it's this. Bravery and grit are finite resources, and I see this all the time. They're drawn from one pool of energy that covers your entire life. You cannot be infinitely brave unless you are infinitely naive. And you cannot be infinitely gritty, full stop. Even hard, everyday things that are something you can currently sustain at home, at work, in your body, in your family, is drawing from the same tank. The house renovation draws from it. The difficult teenager draws from it. The health thing you're managing draws from it. The managing your parents' aging draws from it. The reorg you're surviving at work draws from this bucket of resource. Which means if you're pouring grit into something in your personal life right now, you will have less bravery available at work, and vice versa. This isn't a weakness, it's arithmetic. And it's the very reason why, although people come to me to get executive and leadership coaching, I always say, I coach the whole human. Yes, we're here to help you professionally, but if you're having a bad time personally, we need to work that out, because it's draining this energetic resource that you need every day at work as well. And similarly, if your work is draining you, you have less to give your family. So when you ask yourself, is your mindset holding you back? And it's a question worth asking, by the way. Sometimes the very honest answer is no. Your mindset is fine. Your tank is empty. The version of you who used to sleep at challenges hasn't gone anywhere. She's just fully committed elsewhere. I see this constantly in coaching, a woman berating herself for not going for a role, not speaking up, not starting that thing. And when we map where her bravery and grit are actually being spent, the mystery evaporates. She's not a coward. She's carrying 3 hard things already. This is why depletion makes you fragile. Think of the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back. The straw was never the problem. The problem was everything already on the camel. When your bravery and grit resource, pool of energy, runs close to empty, one small extra demand, a curt email, a minor setback, a request that would normally be nothing, can be the thing that breaks you. If you've ever had an outsized reaction to something small and wondered what on earth was wrong with you, nothing is wrong with you. You were running on fumes. This is the territory where burnout lives, and it's also why boundaries aren't a luxury. They're how you protect this pool of energy. Let me make this concrete for you. As always, the client story where I've changed the details. A director I worked with last year came to me convinced she had lost her edge. 2 years earlier, she'd been the person who volunteered for everything, the one who put her hand up for the scary projects. Now, a genuinely exciting VP role was opening up in her organization, the kind of role she'd been building towards for a decade, and she couldn't make herself apply. Her words to me were, "I don't know who I've become. I've lost myself." So we mapped her pool of energy cost. In the previous 18 months, she had moved her family across the country, supported her mother through a serious illness, absorbed 2 rounds of layoffs, by the way, one of the worst, and the resulting reorgs, which meant re-interviewing for her own role and renovating a house. Any one of those is a major grit commitment. Notice they're all grit. Moving her family across the country probably required some bravery, but the rest of it was all just required of her. It was grit. She was carrying all 4 things. The woman who used to volunteer for everything had gone from a full tank to an empty tank. The woman who couldn't apply for the VP role was running the same engine on empty. Nothing about her changed except that balance. Once she saw that, everything shifted, not because the tank magically refilled, but because the story changed from "I've lost my nerve" to "my resources are overcommitted, so what do I deliberately wind down before making the next big draw?" She applied for the role 3 months later, after the house was done and after her mother was stable. She got it. The delay was not cowardice. It was resource management. And as soon as she gave herself permission for that, it actually fixed itself faster. I think we spend a lot of energy beating ourselves up or getting angry at the system. That's the other place we waste energy. There's a good reason to be angry at the system, but it very rarely fixes anything, changes anything. What it does do is drain your resources. That resource management, I would argue, is exactly what high performance leadership looks like from the inside. Because if you know all the tactics of how to be a high performance leader, how you show up, how you communicate, your executive presence, you can only do all that if you are managing your energy. Your emotional resilience needs energy in order to be there. And aware for the people who seem infinitely brave, the celebrities, the founders who bet everything, the people who risk appetite may feel like crazy to you, your tiny risk appetite. Look closely at their resources: money, teams, safety nets, people to absorb problems. When you can throw resource at a problem, you need less grit to get through. I have seen celebrity entrepreneurs who seem to throw everything at something, but you know what they've got? They've got money in the bank that can get them out of almost any hole. When you know you'll be fine, whatever happens, the risk is structurally smaller. So the bravery required is smaller too. They're not braver than you. They're playing the same game at lower stakes. Stop measuring your courage against theirs. I remember my coach, when I started my business, telling me, "Your first 100K is the hardest 100K you'll ever earn." I never knew what she meant. Now I do. It's this: the bravery it took to step out and build my own coaching business rather than being an employee was so new to me. It took a lot more bravery. Now I know how to do it. I don't need bravery to do it. I just do it all the time. And I view every challenge we have. The first executive role I took required so much bravery. Now I wouldn't think twice about it. It's not that you get braver, it's that you've got confidence in the bank. Every time you play the game, the stakes get lower. Stop measuring your courage against somebody else's. So how do you actually use this model? First, yourself, then for your team. I want to talk about this in those 2 ways. There is also some self-awareness that comes in leadership so that we make this practical. So let's dive into this. Before you take on the next hard thing, do what you do with any budget. Check what's already committed. Let's do an audit. Where is my bravery and grit currently going across my entire whole life, not just work? Is there genuinely capacity for this, or am I about to withdraw? So in the last few years, I've had a lot of personal things in my life. I've had very sick family members. I've had family members die, sadly. People that might have died that pulled through. And that meant I had less to give to my coaching business. bravery was gone. If I was a leader today, I would have had less to give bravery-wise at work. Have a look at your entire life. Where are you at capacity? Are you overdrawn on your capacity? Sometimes the strategic answer is, I'm not going to do this now. I want to be clear that not yet, because my tank is fully committed. It's a completely different decision from not ever because I'm scared. The first is wisdom. Make sure you know which one you're using. 3 questions will help you really make this audit work for you. What am I currently sustaining that requires grit everywhere in my life? What's coming in the next 6 months that will demand bravery? You might not know, but give it a guess, right? What do you know that's going to take some bravery? And then thirdly, what have I recently finished that I haven't yet banked as confidence? That third one matters a lot, because when you look at it, if you've completed something hard, you should work on acknowledging that, because that energy is then paid back into the bank. If you don't acknowledge it, you never pay it back and you never collect the return on it, right? So when you acknowledge, I've done a hard thing, I finished it, you are banking some confidence, which fills up your bravery and grit again. So you have to take a moment or several or days to say, I've completed that hard thing. Look at what I've achieved. That's a mindset thing. That is taking the time to acknowledge what you've done rather than diminishing, belittling, saying somebody else helped me with that. The classic mistake I see in high achievers is this deep end plunge. Take on the enormous thing, white knuckle through it, hope confidence arrives at the end. Sometimes it works. Often it drains the pool so completely that even when you succeed, you've got nothing left for the next thing. And the win leaves you fragile rather than stronger. But you've got to take the time to actually acknowledge the wins along the way. You gradually build the confidence as you go. So you're taking grit, but you're getting some confidence in the bank, which gives you some grit back. This is where we're building confidence deliberately through structured small wins. Break the frightening thing into small pieces, small enough that each one gives you that little bravery and a little bit of grit back. Each completion pays confidence back into the bank account, right? Speak at the internal meeting before the conference. Coach one person before you commit to leading the program. Run the pilot before the transformation. Every completed step reduces the price of the next step. That's not playing small, it's compounding interest, okay? God, my analogy is going out of control here. And do the accounting on your history, because most of you are sitting on unclaimed confidence. You've done genuinely hard things and never banked them, usually because your inner critic fired them under doesn't count, or anyone could have done it. Write a list of what you've done this year. The hard things you've completed, the things you're tempted to say, oh, but I didn't really, somebody else did that. Read it before the next brave moment. It's not vanity. It's evidence, and the evidence is the antidote to your imposter syndrome voice. Now let me talk about not you. I want to widen this idea, this energy model out, the wider lens, because this model gets even more powerful when you point it at your team. And this is the bit, as a coach, I love. Right now, especially with AI transformation running through almost every tech organization I work with, you are asking your people to be brave and gritty constantly. New tools, new workflows, new definitions of their own value. For many of them all at once with no existing confidence to draw on, because nobody has done this before and they're paying for it from the same kind of finite pool you are, which also has a mortgage and a family and a life drawing on it. So as their leader, ask yourself questions most leaders never ask. Where on the bravery, grit, confidence curve is each of my people right now? Am I asking for bravery from someone who's already 3 months deep in grit and running low? Am I expecting confident performance from someone who is in the naive bravery stage of something new? When someone resists change, I hate that phrase when it comes up in performance reviews. When they are resisting change, is that actually resistance, or is it an empty tank? Have they previously been a high performer and today they're resisting? I watched this play out on a client leading an AI adoption program recently on a 200-person engineering org, right? And between us, the whole point was to halve that team in the next couple of years. But that wasn't public. On paper, the rollout was going fine. In reality, her most experienced engineers, the ones whose identity was built on 20 years of hard-won experience, were quietly stalling. Her first read was resistance, or maybe their egos, or that they'd actually found out the plan was to let them go, which was supposed to be completely not true and not known about, right? When we ran through the model, it became very different. There were people being asked for enormous bravery to become beginners again in public, while their confidence account in the world today was at zero. Their grit was already committed to delivery deadlines that hadn't moved. They weren't resisting the technology. They couldn't afford the bravery required to do the next step. High performance looked like low performers all of a sudden. And I'm seeing this all the time. Look at their energy bank account. When my client changed what was the price, not the people, the price she was asking them to commit, she protected learning time so adoption stopped competing for delivery for the same grit bucket. Small, visible, low stakes wins built confidence step by step so they could start accruing confidence before anything important depended on the new tools. And senior engineers were paired as learning partners, so nobody was a beginner alone. Within a quarter, the stalling had gone, and not one conversation about resistance was ever needed. And the cool thing was, what it meant is that company is accelerating against its peers, its peer companies, its competitors, which means they're no longer talking about layoffs. And that, to me, that is where this stuff is magic. Because if you can get ahead of the competition, because most companies are not looking at it like this, then your team is going to outcompete, at which point you can keep the team because you are bringing in so much more revenue. It makes sense to have a bigger team and produce more stuff rather than cutting the team. When we do this, it is great leadership. You reduce the price to your team, not because you're reducing the work, but you're asking them to do it in a different way. You're breaking it up differently. Build your team's confidence deliberately, the same way you would build your own, through structured small wins, visible milestones, named progress. Celebrate completion specifically, because every acknowledged win banks confidence that makes the next ask cheaper. Equally, it puts energy in the bank, which means you've got bravery and grit to give. Sequence the demands so you're not asking everyone for maximum bravery in the second quarter, you're asking for maximum grit. Part of the job of a leader is to not map out everything for your team, except the bits that make sense to calm them. They don't need to know what bravery they're going to have to be asked for next quarter. That's your job to hold that. You hold the ask of the bravery and grit on behalf of your team. That is part of being a leader. Your team does not need that noise. That doesn't mean you don't tell them stuff. That's also bad leadership. But you don't spell out how much bravery they're going to need. This, by the way, is true coaching, not advice giving, not cheerleading, but the deliberate practice of helping another person build evidence-based confidence and spend their bravery and grit. Wow. It's why coaching skills make you a better leader. And in a way, the amount of domain expertise is almost irrelevant. And this is why I get really irritated when I have a leader come to me saying, yes, I coach my team, and what they're actually doing is having really important, but not coaching conversations about people's careers. That is not coaching. A leader who can coach doesn't just get through a transformation. Her and her team come out the other side as a team whose pool is fuller than when they started it. That is coaching. Not great conversations around careers, but great conversations around energy, around completion, around confidence, around helping these people solve problems for themselves. Okay, let's talk about where to start this week. I love to end every episode with some small action steps you can take. 3 things I want you to do, and I actually want you to do them. Write these down. First of all, map your energy pool, your pool. 20 minutes, your whole life, not just work. Where is your bravery and grit currently committed? What's the biggest drain? Just seeing it on paper changes from the story from what's wrong with me to that's where it's all going, right? Secondly, bank your evidence. Write the list of hard things you've completed recently, this last 6 months. 10 things minimum. They can be quite small things, by the way. I love the small things. Keep it where you'll see it before the next brave moment. I'm a big believer in every week you should be writing a win list of the things you've done that week. They should be small enough. You did different things every week. Otherwise, it's not a win list. It's a life-changing moments list. Okay. Thirdly, pick one small denomination, one structured small win this week toward the thing you've been circling, not the plunge pool, the first step that's small enough to afford and real enough to count. Every week, as I said, you should have a win. So pick one for this week that you're going to work towards. one final note. If this model has made sense to you, the bravery, the grit, and the confidence energy model, building confidence deliberately in yourself and in others, spending bravery and grit strategically rather than heroically. If this is exactly the kind of thing that you like, this is the kind of coaching you want, it's what I do with my clients every week. But I have a special thing for you. In a few months' time, in September, I am starting my next round of the Ignite Coach Training Academy. I took a year off last year for personal reasons. As I said, there's been a lot going on in my life personally. And training coaches is something I do because I'm aware we need more great coaches than what I can do by myself and my team. And so I train coaches. In particular, I love training leaders to bring coaching into their leadership. I think it makes you a far better leader. And so I'm opening up my coach training program this fall. Doors open right now for the September cohort, and it's limited in number. There is an early bird discount open right now, but it's closing very, very soon. It's a big discount, by the way. So if you would like to be part of this September cohort and you want to learn how to coach your team more powerfully as a leader, or you're curious about coaching as a bigger part of your future, it will give you the structured skill set for everything we've talked about today. All the details are in the links in the show notes. But if you aren't sure if it's right for you, let's just talk about it. Book a complimentary chat with me at tonicollis.com/let's-chat. And we'll work together. I will give you an honest assessment whether it's the thing for you to use your energy on right now. I do turn people away on the basis that they don't have the energy to give to this. But equally, I have tried to make this program something you do alongside a full-time executive role because I think that's essential. Thank you for listening. And as always, remember, keep leading. Bye for now.